Hi everyone, and welcome to this short video about the Azure SQL Database Vulnerability Assessment. Vulnerability Assessment is a feature of both SQL Server, the boxed version, that SQL Server that we install on-prem or in a virtual machine, and it's a function of the SQL Server client, the main client, which is Management Studio. You can trigger a vulnerability assessment for your database or databases against a certain rules that are predefined by Microsoft, and then you can choose to accept these vulnerabilities or just assume that these are the baseline, and then later will not be triggered again. The same feature is available as well in the Azure SQL Database. And recently I got a request from one of my customers about using the vulnerability assessment with a network protected storage account. So before we go to the demo, I'm going to start first by the whiteboard as usual. And here, let's speak about the topology of what we are having. The Azure SQL DB in our scenario is outside the VNet. It's not attached to VNet by service endpoint or by private link, and it really doesn't matter. So in this case, whether the SQL DB is connected to the VNet somehow or not, it doesn't matter. What matters here is we have a storage account. The storage account in our demo is connected to a VNet using service endpoint, and in the firewall of the storage account you will see that the firewall is only accepting the traffic from inside this VNet. So only a machine inside this VNet or a resource inside this VNet can connect to the storage account. Now, when we enable the vulnerability assessment, it requires to have a storage account. So we need to provide a storage account for in the portal or in the PowerShell or REST API, whatever the tool that you are using, you need to provide a storage account. And when you have the storage account chosen, and the portal can detect, in the case of the portal, if this storage account is protected by a firewall, it will tell you that, oh, please make sure that this storage account allows trusted Microsoft services. So it's an option of the firewall here. So that's the first thing that we need to talk about. For this to succeed, we need to have a feature or a checkbox in the firewall to allow Microsoft or trusted Microsoft services. This is a preset of services in Azure, including the vulnerability assessment as a service, including Azure Cognitive Services, Azure Data Factory. All these are predefined services that by this checkbox we allow the access to these. So once we do this, that means any client from inside the VNet plus the trusted services can access it. So when we have this enabled and we choose the firewall, everything will work fine. Typically the issue will come if we have a client here outside, like this client outside the VNet, and using the portal, you try to see the vulnerability assessment and you will not be able to see it. In this case, that's because the client does not have direct access to the storage account. If this client here, let me assume that we copied the client inside our VNet. If we are connecting from a client inside the VNet to the portal, it's not the firewall, it's the portal, then you will be able to see it. The idea is the firewall does not show you the data that are saved inside the storage account unless you are connected from a location, a network location that is approved by the firewall of the storage account. That's the basic idea. Let's move to the demo and we'll see how it goes. So this is our database that we will try to enable the vulnerability assessment on. Vulnerability assessment will be under security, under advanced data security, and here you will see the vulnerability assessment. So far we don't see anything because it's not enabled yet. When we click on it, you choose to enable it and you choose the storage account. Once you choose the storage account, whatever the storage account is, you can choose to have periodic recurring for the scan. So the scans will happen periodically, what emails to send the scan to, and choose the vulnerability assessment or the category of the vulnerability assessment that you want to have for this one. I already enabled this for another database, and this other database has the vulnerability assessment enabled on a storage account that is already protected by a firewall. So let's inspect first the storage account. and I will go to the firewall section. In the blade here, we will see that we only accept traffic from the virtual network that I have. It's called SQL MI VNet, and I have only one subnet there that's allowed to access my my storage account. And here, this is the option I'm telling you about. If without this option, the vulnerability assessment will fail, which is allow Trust Microsoft Services to access the storage account. In this, when you hover over this help icon, you can see the list of all the services. When you click on this one, it's very well documented there. All right, so this is the storage account. We're gonna go back to my database. So the database here, and the security, advanced data security, I already enabled it. Now when I'm checking here the vulnerability assessment, I don't see anything, and I will see error message that tells me that the storage account is behind the firewall. When I click on it, I don't see anything, and that's because my laptop that I'm using right now to access the portal is not one of the network that is allowed to access the storage account. However, when I go to another machine, this is a machine in Azure, in that specific virtual network that is allowed to access the storage account. When I open from the machine, the browser, I open the portal to the same database. When I go down, I see the security. Here you go. You have all the details of the vulnerability assessment. You can go through them, you can loop through them. Some will accept as baseline for yourself. Some you will do some actions to fix them, and you can always do a scan, ad hoc scan at any time that you would like to have it. That's the aim of the video, just to show how this specific use case, which is the storage account behind the firewall, and the trick or the issue that some people might find when they are connecting to the portal from a machine that is not allowed to access this storage account. Thank you.